What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of High Floor Football. I am your host, and as always, with me is my faithful co-host, but who has clearly not unpacked his stash of Hawaiian shirts from the suitcase at this point. Jay Arsht, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I thought about it. I said I would do Hawaiian shirts all summer. I have some things packed as I just moved. Just came from work, though. I kind of felt the green fit our backdrop, our color scheme. So feeling good in the green. It's almost a Kelly green if you look at it. So it's a nice golf shirt. But yeah, man, I'm doing well. We're kind of talking about it. All the drafts are going to be happening this week through the weekend, and maybe some people that are waiting till the end. I'm jealous because I tend to always have players get hurt on these teams that I drafted a week early, and I wish we could just wait a week longer. But, it is what it is. I have a live draft in Scottsdale this weekend with my main league, so looking forward to it. It's a salary cap keeper league, so a lot of nuance to it, a lot of things to think about. But today we're just going to go through, regular snake draft, our favorite picks in each round, our favorite targets. So I think it should be digestible for, a lot of people that are just doing these normal drafts this time of year. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing with building like your ideal draft is you get to see a couple. First of all, you get to see a couple points of view, but truly you get to see what a person thinks about each player that's on the board at each round at their pick is. And we're not going to be using any mock draft software or anything today. We're kind of just going to go through pick by pick, or not pick by pick. We're going to go through round by round and choose our high water and kind of, more safe guys at each pick. Jay and I both have a couple prepared for each ones. The over-under on number of Eagles with us doing it is about probably 6.
I only have one on my list for the first 10 rounds. So, and I did think about a couple others, though. I'll be honest, Craig.
I can't confirm or deny where mine land, but we will see. We will see what happens. I might have some new ideas, but we might as well hop right into it. But before we get started, Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy football this season. Go on now to Underdog Fantasy and use code HFF, and that gets you a free 100% match on your first deposit of up to $100. Again, that is promo code HFF. 3 simple letters when you sign up. You benefit me, you benefit Jay, you benefit the show, you benefit yourself, because Underdog is a great place to go and mock. If you're new to fantasy football or you're trying to school your league mates, Underdog is the best place to mock because you can mock for money. Cold hard cash. Best Ball Mania 3 is only 70% filled. You still have a few weeks to enter before the season starts. They're rolling out new smaller tournament drafts like the Pomeranian 3 and 4 every single week. But the best part about Best Ball Mania 3 is if you win $2 million. If you want to benefit one of us, but not both, that's perfectly up to you. But it is your benefit.
I think Craig's directing that at me. I'm taking it personally, Craig. And let me say one more point about the Underdog thing. This joke between Sam and I actually recently is, there are all these great tournaments. There's so many different things to play on Underdog. Don't shy away from playing those $3 and $5 leagues too, because if you win those, if you're an addict like me, you can justify it by thinking that you will pay off all these other tournaments you're playing in by winning a couple of these smaller leagues. So I just had to poke fun at that joke. It was a fun thing. Underdog is great. So yeah, go on there, draft. It's great for the mock drafts too. I mean, like I've even been talking to some of my friends that, get more into it now, August, July, whatever. I've been doing these Underdog drafts for a couple months. You have such a better handle on the ADP and where guys are going and kind of the ranges that you want to draft players. So big shout out to Underdog.
Yep. And you get a head start on the rest of your league mates who don't use Underdog. And you get free money. Free $100. Who turns down free $100? Not me. So with that said, let's hop right into the meat of our show. We are talking, like we said, building the ideal perfect draft in our opinions. So we're going to start right at the top. We're going to start in round 1. Jay, who is your ideal target if you had your pick in round 1?
So my ideal target, and, we'll kind of talk through the process of it, but it's Justin Jefferson. I believe he might be yours too. It's, there's some nuance to it because if I have the first overall pick, I am taking Christian McCaffrey, but my most favorable situation is leaving the first round with Justin Jefferson because, as we'll get to with a couple of the other following rounds, is I like a lot of the running backs in round 2. I like some players at different positions in the later rounds. So I love starting off my draft with Justin Jefferson. I don't think this is any surprise to anybody. Justin Jefferson's a pretty popular player at the top of drafts. He's my main guy that I like coming out with, and kind of following up with him would be if I were to go running back. My favorite, again, Christian McCaffrey would be number 1, but I love drafting Dalvin Cook as well because I think he drops to a range that we haven't really seen before, where he's, I've seen Dalvin Cook go at the 112, at the 110. I think that's a great range to grab a guy like him. So those are my targets for the first round.
I'm also going to go pretty similar with McCaffrey and Jefferson as my high water guys. I get the whole thing with McCaffrey. You think he's injury prone. Got it. I get it. He hasn't stayed healthy in 2 years. He's burned you. I get it. But we're at the point with Christian McCaffrey now where he's no more likely to get injured than any other running back on the board. He's at that 5% threshold that the wonderful Doctor of Physical Therapy over at Fantasy Point, Edwin Porras, has talked so much about. When you get 2 years out from these injuries, these soft tissue injuries, your risk of re-injury goes down to 5%, which is just any normal running back's chance to get injured again. So that's good. For Christian McCaffrey, you're obviously taking him at the 1 or 2 most likely. Justin Jefferson should be available starting at pick 3 for you. Some leagues may push him down a little bit more in favor of Cooper Kupp, but I do think that Justin Jefferson is going to be the best wide receiver in fantasy football, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's already gone up on his rookie year numbers. Most people wouldn't be able to go up from 85 catches for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns in their rookie season. But Jefferson went to 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns in his sophomore season. That's a huge increase for him. Everything is saying that with the new offense designed by Kevin O'Connell coming over from the Rams, Justin Jefferson will play the Cooper Kupp role in this offense and finish as the wide receiver 1. Now, if you're at the end of the first round, you have a couple options. You can go and take Dalvin Cook, like Jay said. He's usually available near that 9-10 spot. You can also go very safe and take someone like Stephon Diggs down there. His ADP ranking on Football Guys is 10. But he is in the best passing offense in the league and represents a huge floor in terms of his target share, which should be in the high 20%. He should garner around 150 targets at a minimum. Wouldn't be shocked if he sees more. And he will score. Like he cracked the code on being able to score some touchdowns. He always had, that issue in his toolbox in the first few years of his career. But since he came to Buffalo, he's really kind of unlocked that. And again, he is by far the best pass catcher in that offense. No shame to Gabe Davis.
That's for sure. And going on to the second round too, it'll kind of go off of what I was just saying in the first, why I do prefer to go Justin Jefferson, or like you said, Stephon Diggs. I really like Stephon Diggs as well. The main reason behind that is, in addition to their talent, in addition to what they can do, is the running backs that are available in the second round this year is nuts. A lot of these guys could be first round picks. You can make a case for them to be. Alvin Kamara has done everything to prove to us every single year that he's probably going to be worthy of a first round pick again. The suspension pending, all that kind of stuff. But my favorite target is Saquon Barkley. He's going off the board as RB9, as the number 17 player off the board, according to the Football Guys ADP, the consensus ADP. I get it. Some people are going to be nervous about taking Saquon. He's disappointed us as well. But the upside of what Saquon can do, what we've seen his rookie year, what we saw, in spurts throughout his career, is he has upside that really, other guys don't. He has just a certain skill set that other guys don't. He's super talented in an offense that's really going to need him to step up. Look at the Giants wide receiver room. We're all hoping Kadarius Toney is going to have a breakout season, but outside of Kadarius Toney, it's, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kenny Golladay, not so much going on in this offense. They're going to need Saquon Barkley. He's going to get all the touches he can handle, and he's my favorite target in the second round. And some of the other guys, like I mentioned, Alvin Kamara, could be in the first round, so I don't mind taking him in the second as well. Same with DeAndre Swift, another one of my favorite targets. So if you come out of the second round with Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, or DeAndre Swift, I think that's a huge win, especially if, like I said, you start off with a Justin Jefferson and you get one of those guys that really could have a case for going top 5 to 7. Would you argue with anybody saying they took Saquon Barkley or Alvin Kamara over Joe Mixon or over Dalvin Cook or over Najee Harris. I think they're all in a similar conversation. So getting them in the second round is awesome. And I prefer them over the wide receivers there too, over the Deebo Samuels, CeeDee Lambs, Mike Evans. Love all those players too, but I do prefer going running back in the second round.
I mean, here's the thing. When you have 5 wide receivers in the top 12 ADP, and that's how it shakes out per Football Guys, you have Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams there. Not to mention Travis Kelce and CeeDee Lamb are at 13 and 14. There, the opportunity presents itself for you to have a ton of really workhorse running backs available to you in the second round. And that's really not something that we've seen that much in the past few seasons. It's always been running back heavy. That is what the casual fantasy football drafter defaults to, is grabbing a running back. But you can really wait on running back this year. I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan as well. I have definitely warmed up to Alvin Kamara a lot now that we're pretty certain that he's not going to be suspended. But another guy who I've really warmed up to, and it took us a little bit of a hit today with the news that the Packers view both A.J. Dillon and this player as the 1A and 1A in the offense. But I am still extremely high on Aaron Jones's potential this year. The fact remains that without Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones's points per game numbers rise by 8. That is 8. That goes from 15.1 points per game with Devontae Adams in the lineup to 23.3 points per game without him in the lineup. He runs more routes. He sees more snaps out wide. He sees a higher target share. Everything gets moved up for Aaron Jones when Devontae is not in the lineup. And adding to the fact that you can say whatever you want about Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, even Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, Robert Tonyan. Aaron Jones is most likely this team's best pass catcher from a pure, reliability perspective. He's been on the team for 5 seasons now. Rodgers trusts him implicitly. He is still seeing goal line work, though, obviously significantly less with A.J. Dillon in town. But Aaron Jones is by far one of the more underrated guys, obviously not over the last couple months, but Aaron Jones is really quite underrated in terms of his importance to this offense. This is an offense that's ran at a high motor for the last couple seasons. They need Aaron Jones to be able to maintain that level of, high speed ahead. So I'm all in on Aaron Jones. He's a guy that is a massive second round value. I'm comfortable rolling out a hero running back strategy with him as my guy. And I do think that there is a slim, but still outside chance that he is the next 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver in the end.
Yeah, I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, I think it is interesting that, we don't always agree, but these first 2 rounds, the way that we would start it ideally seems pretty similar. I mean, we just talked about 4 running backs in the second round. So, starting off these drafts, if, based on what you were just saying, if you were to come out with a Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, or, a Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, great starts. You're hitting wide receiver and running back. So much running back value in the second round. So I'm on board. Moving on to the third, Craig here in the comments, was asking when the first Eagle was going to come on the board. Here we go. So A.J. Brown is my target in round 3, going off the board as wide receiver 12 and the 31st player off the board. A.J. Brown is my favorite target in round 3. I love drafting him there. I mean, I think the upside is clearly there for him to break into more of the top 8, top 7 wide receivers. So going at wide receiver 12, pretty nice. I don't know that A.J. Brown has the upside to be overall wide receiver 1, but I think somewhere in that, 5 to 12 range he should be. So getting him at 12, I think, is a good spot. My other target there in the third round, which, might not be as popular. I mean, amongst the fantasy community, we as a community seem to love DJ Moore. Sam was sending me pictures from his home draft this past weekend. DJ Moore got drafted in the 6th round. So it happens. Some people don't love DJ Moore, So I think it makes perfect sense that – it doesn't make perfect sense. It almost is you might be able to get him later than where I'm saying to take him in the 3rd round, but I love him there. He's only going 3 spots behind A.J. Brown, so 34th player off the board, wide receiver 14. So DJ Moore, A.J. Brown, if you can come out of the 3rd round with one of them, I feel really good about that. They should get a lot of targets. A.J. Brown will have to see a little bit of bump. We're assuming and projecting the Eagles are going to pass more than they have, but when you invest in a guy like A.J. Brown, to the extent that they did, I expect A.J. Brown's targets to go up and we'll see maybe a career high number in that department. So, and DJ Moore, routinely finishes in the top 5 in targets, top 10 in targets. I mean, the guy's pretty much a lock for 140 plus. So the upgrade with Baker Mayfield. I like A.J. Brown and DJ Moore as my targets in the 3rd round.
So for me, like I said, rolling a hero running back strategy. I'm also going to go away from the running back spot at this point. Add to either my wide receiver core or add a tight end. And if you know me, I'm extremely high on one tight end, and his name is Kyle Anthony Pitts. Yes, he of the one who dunked on a poor defenseless Jets cornerback the other night with a 52-yard grab that would have been a touchdown if Marcus Mariota was a little bit more accurate. Look, Kyle Pitts is going to redefine the tight end position. He may redefine it so much that Matt Harmon eventually charts him. So
that's what he said. He said, somebody go chart the tight ends and they'll do it.
Yeah. But look, Pitts doesn't split out wide, enough to make, charting tight ends a necessary evil for Matt. If you know Matt, it's one of his most hated questions. He gives the little Ron Swanson Parks and Recreation, slowly turning away gif whenever he sees it. But Kyle Pitts is just that guy. He's going to be, even in the Atlanta offense, which is not going to be remotely good, he will still be a generational player. I do believe that there is a ceiling for Kyle Pitts where he hits 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns this season. He's just that good. He's that scary. And he's just in that good of a situation. Kyle Pitts is generational. You should be taking him in your 3rd rounds if you can. Look, he's going to be there in most of your home leagues. He might even be there in the, near the 3rd round turn. If for some reason he's not there, there's another guy I really love. Keenan Allen is there as well. Keenan Allen is pretty much one of the safest players in fantasy football this year. Can't really see him finishing lower than wide receiver 9 or 10 this year. Given that Justin Herbert seems primed to throw for 5,000 yards. Someone's got to catch those balls outside of Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. It's going to be Keenan Allen as well. He may not have the spike weeks that you covet, but he'll give you 14, 15 points a game pretty easily. He's still got very sure hands. He's still one of the best route runners in the league. So both Keenan Allen and Kyle Pitts there are great. If you do want to go running back in this spot, I don't really recommend it. There are some options. Travis Etienne is kind of sitting right there at the end of the 3rd round, but we'll see as well. But we can move on to the 4th since I think I just took Jay's guy.
Well, I mean, one of the things I was going to say about Keenan Allen, it's kind of my favorite thing to say about him because, me too. I love the narratives. I love kind of the personalities and following all those storylines of these players. And Keenan Allen really seems to be every wide receiver's favorite wide receiver. He's the guy that every year in fantasy is underrated somehow. He goes later than he finishes every year, rolls out of bed with 100 catches, ton of targets. Now he's got a great quarterback. But he really is, if you ask any wide receiver in the NFL, I mean, Keenan Allen is on everybody's list. So, another year where Keenan Allen's probably underrated. And like you said, he's probably going to be a lock for consistency. So going into the 4th round, a little bit of cheating here because Travis Etienne is technically the last pick of the 3rd round. He sometimes falls to the 4th. So, I came up with a backup plan just in case, there was a little penalty flag on the Travis Etienne 3rd round target. So my 4th round target, if not Travis Etienne, if he does go, end of the 3rd, is Jaylen Waddle. I think Jaylen Waddle is also kind of a situation where he's going wide receiver 16. I think he finished around wide receiver 14 last year off the top of my head. But Tyreek Hill goes there. We're kind of downgrading Jaylen Waddle where, clearly if Tyreek Hill wasn't there, he'd be a little bit higher on our lists. But when I look at the players around him, I just prefer to take him there. In the fourth round, you have a lot of quarterbacks that start to go based on the ADP. So it's Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, first few quarterbacks, or the second and third quarterbacks go. Josh Allen goes a little bit sooner. And then the running backs, like Sam said, not a great spot. David Montgomery, Cam Akers, a couple of those guys in the fourth round. And then there's Breece Hall and Travis Etienne potentially. So if Travis Etienne's gone, I prefer Jaylen Waddle, and kind of fits the build of what Sam was talking about as well. As I'm also a fan this year of kind of doing more of a hero RB approach. There's just so many wide receivers to eat up in these middle rounds. And running back seems a little bit deeper than it has been, just in terms of the dead zone being extended. I feel like there's guys in the dead zone here that I am trying to avoid, but then there are guys kind of after the dead zone that I feel like should be ranked a little higher that I would be taking ahead of, the Josh Jacobs, the David Montgomerys of the world. So in this range, I prefer to go wide receiver with Jaylen Waddle if Travis Etienne's gone. So
yeah, I just feel like that, this start of the dead zone, and the fourth round starts the dead zone this year, it's really ugly. And I feel like there's like the secondary dead zone of like the 8th, 9th round is so much more attractive to pick running backs out of at terms of value. Cause when we're looking for our RB2, we're really looking for 11 to 14 points per game. Not only can you sometimes find that on waivers in some leagues, depending on how sharp your league is, but you really can find guys in those late single digit, early double digit rounds that will give you that number. So I'm a huge fan of waiting on a running back. I don't feel the need to reach on any of those guys. Guys like you said, Akers, Breece Hall is a favorite of mine, but again, someone who I'm more partial to start with Breece Hall in a modified 0 running back, where I'm taking a running back in like the 4th round for the first time, instead of having Breece Hall be my second guy. Because I feel like you're missing out on some value pockets in this, round 4 to 6 of some really talented players, one of which is Cortland Sutton. And, we all talk about the Broncos offense this offseason ever since Russell Wilson went there, but we're not really ranking them as such. We're ranking both of the Miami wide receivers with Tua higher than we are the Broncos wide receivers with Russell Wilson. So I feel that's a little bit of a discrepancy. Not to say that Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle aren't talented. They very much are. But so are Jerry Judy and Cortland Sutton. And Cortland Sutton is going off the board at wide receiver 18 right now. He's firmly in that 4th round, mid 4th round, late 4th round pocket. And Cortland Sutton's just set up for a monster season. Not saying he's going to approach the DK Metcalf numbers of 1,300 yards from a couple of years ago, but I definitely think he should get close. He should pass 1,000 yards. He should have 9 to 10 touchdowns. He'll be the deep threat for this offense. And for me, this is more a product of not really seeing a lot from Jerry Judy yet so far. He's had a couple injury-filled campaigns. It took him a little while to get back up to speed after his ankle sprain last year. And I'm not really sure what what we should expect from Jerry Judy this year. But I do know that we should expect great things from Cortland Sutton this year. He's my first target in that round 4. The second target in that round 4, this is a great spot. If you are so inclined to take a quarterback, this is where you should be looking to select your quarterback 1 in Josh Allen. Allen might go a little bit earlier in some leagues, but if he's here, this is a good place to take the pretty near consensus QB1 in your drafts. Again, not recommending it, but if you do end up wanting to take it, he's a great spot here. I have kind of pivoted to more of a middle round QB strategy. I'm not reaching this early for a quarterback because, again, I do still feel like there are some value pockets. But Josh Allen here, if you wanted to go someone like Justin Herbert here, I would understand it. Later on in the 4th round, but the 5th round is where you start to see some quarterbacks fly off the board, and the late 4th round is a good spot to kind of get a jump there.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that. I mean, it's the first time that we're aside from if somebody takes Josh Allen, in the 3rd round or something, but the 4th round is really when we start to see quarterbacks go. I really wouldn't take one there personally, just because when I look at the board, like you said, I mean, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, I don't think anyone's going to criticize you for taking those players. I mean, they're great players. They could, have huge seasons. They're set up nicely. But that being said, I mean, after them, Lamar Jackson goes, about a round later. Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts go a couple rounds after them. As you know, who I'll talk about when we get closer to like round 9, 10 is Trey Lance. There's plenty of guys. I do think you should prioritize getting one of these top like 7, 8 quarterbacks because the upside with them just is so much different than the guys kind of after them, more of the pocket passers. I would like to get one of the mobile guys in the top 8, but the 4th round feels a little early for me. Like I said, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, no one's going to criticize you for it, but there are quarterbacks a couple rounds later that I think have similar upside. So moving on to the 5th round here. Another one that I'll say, if he falls, because he was my initial target, but it's a little bit before, more in the 4th round, is George Kittle. And I like taking Kittle in the 5th round, Kittle or Waller. I mean, it's kind of with Sam's point when he brought up Kyle Pitts in the 3rd. I draft a lot of Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round, but when I don't, I'm pretty pleased to 2 rounds later get a George Kittle or a Darren Waller. I think, as much as Kyle Pitts is going to explode, I agree with Sam. I don't know if the full thing will happen this year. At some point, for sure, it's going to happen, and Kyle Pitts is going to break fantasy. I agree with that. But drafting a Darren Waller, George Kittle in the 5th round is pretty nice as well. I feel like you can get a little bit more value early and still get one of the elite tight ends. If they're not there, especially if Kittle, because I do prefer him over Waller, Hollywood Brown's a target that I like in the 5th round. I'm still going wide receiver, Hollywood Brown, Darnell Mooney going kind of back of the 5th round. So I like those guys. I mean, Hollywood Brown's going to get that little bump from DeAndre Hopkins being out 6 weeks, as well as, the narratives of, him and Kyler Murray being best friends and college teammates. And, the last time we saw that happen with 2 young players, it worked out pretty well with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So Hollywood Brown going over to the Cardinals, teaming up with his buddy Kyler, and then also kind of the extra pieces of DeAndre Hopkins suspension, Marquise Brown, and kind of a more pass-happy offense. I mean, I like all the factors there. So Hollywood Brown and Darnell Mooney would be 2 of my targets if those tight ends don't make it to you in Kittle and Waller.
Okay. I really like both strategies there. I'm happy to kind of go with Waller in that spot. Kittle, I'm, a little bit lower on than you are. You definitely know that by now. But for mine, I'm focusing again on 2 more wide receivers here. Allen Robinson, who Football Guys has at 49 overall, just outside that 4th round, and DK Metcalf, who we have at 52, wide receiver 22. So these are 2 guys that, obviously Allen Robinson had the massive down year last year. People left him for dead. Didn't look like he wanted to be anywhere near that Chicago Bears organization. Sorry to all my Bears fans, but can you really blame him? Gets a great situation going to the Rams. Now it's got Matthew Stafford. He's going to take over the wide receiver 2 role. He's the clear X receiver on the outside there. Seems a little hard for him to bust. As I read in an article on Reception Perception from Matt Harmon today, the only way that Allen Robinson busts in Los Angeles is if he's truly washed. There's a chance he is, but I don't think so. So Allen Robinson, the 5th round, is a nice place to continue building your wide receiver room, but I'm way more partial to DK Metcalf personally. And again, I think this is a huge discrepancy in pricing. DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf. This guy was the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty less than a year ago. Like he's a freak athlete. He's a human specimen. Just because he doesn't have a quarterback anymore. Look what we saw DeAndre Hopkins do for years with bad quarterbacks. DK Metcalf is way more athletically gifted. And he's already put up numbers that make me secure in that he is well suited to put up solid numbers with either Geno Smith, Drew Lock, or if they happen to sign Jimmy Garoppolo off the waivers when he gets cut, or whatever happens. DK Metcalf at wide receiver 22 feels kind of egregious to me. I think he is a great option in right at the start of your 5th round there. A little further down the list, we have Gabe Davis, who is going as the wide receiver 27 and at 61 overall here. So He's right there. I think Gabe Davis is a perfect bet at the end of your 5th rounds because you want players on the Bills offense this year that are not named Zach Moss. You really, really want a part of their passing game. Gabe Davis is going to be the perimeter wide receiver for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, across from Stephon Diggs, who will play the Z most times. Davis will play the X in a role that Emmanuel Sanders was very good at. And if he was actually not dust, then he probably would have put up better numbers at. Gabe Davis is definitely not dust. He's only 23. He has a ridiculous touchdown rate in the last 2 years, 13 touchdowns over the last 2 years, and one of the highest ADOTs in the league and yards per reception as well. He's ready for this role. So Gabe Davis is a perfect wide receiver 3 or 4 at this point in the draft in the 5th round.
Yeah, I like those options, and I don't disagree with you on DK. He's an interesting one, clearly. I mean, because where he was going in past years to where he's going now as wide receiver 22, it does seem drastic. And yeah, there's a big quarterback change. The only caveat that I would say with DK, and I would ask you kind of your opinion on it too, I guess, is, I mean, I like DK more in certain builds for sure, because I don't want to depend on DK. If it does go south, I don't want to have like him be my – I mean, where are we? We're in the 5th round. So likely he's not going to be your wide receiver 1. You'll probably have somebody else there, maybe even two or three guys by this point. DK, is your wide receiver 3 or something like that is nuts. I mean, because the upside's there. He will have big weeks because he's so athletic and he's so talented. But it depends on the build for me, because I am a little scared of just that Seattle offense in general. It just seems to be one of those stay away offenses. But DK is so talented and so gifted. I think he will, have plenty of big plays to make up for it. Going into the 6th round, this is more where I start to look at quarterback. So we were mentioning it in the 4th round where you're going to start seeing guys go. This is more where I feel comfortable. I mean, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. I love Joe Burrow, the player. I don't really think he belongs in like that same tier in terms of the quarterbacks for fantasy. I mean, Joe Burrow, QB7. But my main targets in this range are either quarterback, Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, or I like Juju Smith-Schuster going off the board as wide receiver 29, and I'm kind of coming around to it. I liked it initially when he went to Kansas City, and then I was, kind of skeptical. It's Juju. He's disappointed us in the past. When you really look at it, though, I mean, when Juju had success, Antonio Brown was on the outside. Antonio Brown was the main target. Everybody knew that. Juju was able to eat over the middle, eat in the slot. He had huge seasons as a young player. He's still 25 years old, which is crazy. I was texting one of my buddies about that, and he was like, really? I thought Juju was like 30, He's one of those guys that feels like he's been in the league forever because he came in as like a 20-year-old. So Juju is one of my favorite targets. 19. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Juju is one of my favorite targets in this range, though, because the upside in this Kansas City offense, I mean, we've seen it. And it's not that he has to be the wide receiver 2, which is what we tried to find so much in Kansas City, and we're unsuccessful, wanting Mecole Hardman to hit, wanting different guys, Sammy Watkins, the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City doesn't really, get that much production, that many targets from Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's the number 1 option. We all know that. So Travis Kelce's going to be eating up the coverage. Everyone's going to be worried about stopping Travis Kelce. When you look at the competition at wide receiver, Juju really doesn't have as much as I think the consensus thinks, I guess, or the perception may seem. Sky Moore, I think, is going to be a really good player at some point. I think whether that's second half of the season, whether that's early in the season, I don't know for sure. He's not playing with the first team right now, and I think they're going to bring him on a little bit slowly to an extent. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver. So, I mean, you can roll your eyes at it, but he's not playing with the first team right now. So I think they're, getting him acclimated with the second group for some reason, but I like Sky Moore a lot. I just don't think he's going to get more targets than Juju Smith-Schuster is if they're both healthy this season. I don't think that's a hot take personally, but okay, that's fine. I don't care. Marquez Valdes-Scantling's a career bum. I mean, he's a deep threat. That's all that he can do. Now you got me pissed off. So now the players are going to have to take the brunt of it. But seriously, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I get the contract. I get that we're interested to see like how Kansas City is going to use him because they did pay him a lot of money. But he's Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's not like he was playing with a bum in Green Bay either. He had Aaron Rodgers. It's just the type of player that he is. He's a boomer bust guy. He's a deep threat. So I think Juju's got a great opportunity to have a big breakout season. And as Sam's laughing and rolling his eyes, some of the guys that you were talking about earlier today, who you seem to respect in this industry, have said similar things about Juju Smith-Schuster. Matt Harmon saying he could be this year's Cooper Kupp. JJ Zachariason on his Bold Predictions podcast on the Late Round Pod was also touting Juju as the best option to maybe have that sort of breakout. Not have the record-setting season that Cooper Kupp had. I don't think anybody's projecting that. But a guy going in like the 6th round who we've seen be elite before, at least production-wise, 25 years old, going to the best situation he's ever been in. So I like Juju in that round or in that range. Look at the guys going around him, especially the wide receivers. I mean, Jerry Judy, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper. I just would take Juju over all those guys. The only other one who I'll talk about in a round just because of the ADP is Rashad Bateman. I would take Rashad Bateman over Juju, and he's going a little bit later. But I'll take advantage of the ADP and take him next round. So Juju's one of my guys. Or if you're going quarterback, I think this is a good spot to take a Kyler or a Jalen Hurts.
I definitely agree with you. This is a great spot to take your quarterback. Like Jay said, round 6 is the sweet spot. We see Jalen Hurts go in this range. Joe Burrow goes in this range. Kyler Murray goes in this range. So all are great options. If you're still looking to bolster your wide receiver room at this point, some of you may be, looking for your 4th or 5th guy. Adam Thielen is there. Like Jay said, Juju Smith-Schuster is there if you like mediocrity. Amari Cooper is there if you like a ton of mediocrity. Rashad Bateman is again there, but again, he's being more pushed up, an industry standpoint. I would still say that the majority of your leagues, you're going to see Rashad Bateman go in the 7th or later.
We should make some sort of fun bet on the podcast about Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore targets this year, since you think he's going to out-target Juju, barring health. Is that what you really think, or were you just saying?
Barring health.
I'm willing to
barring
make
health. Go on.
Bet with you
Let's talk off stream. Going back to it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is at 72. Like, he's the last one in this round 6 tier. I have no interest. But again, I think round 6 is prime if you want to employ the mid-round QB strategy. Otherwise, there are a bevy of wide receivers around that you can kind of go instead. Jerry Judy is there. I think he's a nice one. But again, a lot of people are concerned about Jerry Judy. They don't really know what to think of him, I myself included. So, he's going to be off my list. I'm most of the time going to be targeting a QB here. Most of the time it's going to be Jalen Hurts, since he's going off the board as QB6. I have him at QB3. So, again, Joe Burrow is there. He's a good one as well. Moving on to round 7. Like we said, Rashad Bateman's here at 71, but again, he's being pushed down. But the real person I want to highlight is yet another wide receiver, but one who's kind of going 2 or 3 rounds later than I think he should be, and that's Elijah Moore. So by now, most of you have heard that Zach Wilson has a bone bruise and a meniscus tear that he had replaced the other week from
Flacco's
the preseason game.
For him anyway.
He is better for him, actually. He is better for him, and obviously it's a much smaller sample size, but all of the Elijah Moore stat points go up significantly with Joe Flacco as opposed to Zach Wilson. At this point, Zach Wilson is kind of viewed as a little dusty, but by people, and a lot of people wanted him to take a step forward this year. But I think we're kind of having to come crashing back down to earth on that one. But here's the thing, kind of like how everyone has said about Keenan Allen, like he's so much better than people think. Well, a lot of people say that Elijah Moore is better than people think. AJ Brown straight up said Elijah Moore is better than me at football. Like, you're getting that from the one of the legends of today's game in AJ Brown. Like, Elijah Moore is a stud. He popped so hard near the end of last season. He was averaging 17.7 fantasy points per game down the stretch. His college statistics in rookie season compare favorably to Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley. He was averaging a solid 1.8 yards per route run despite Zach Wilson's quarterback play. And again, I really don't think the injury is a bad thing for him. So, and here's the biggest thing, and it's so data driven that it doesn't even need to be researched. Betting on second year breakouts for wide receivers is one of the safest bets that you can make in fantasy football. Elijah Moore is the play.
Yeah, I mean, I like Elijah Moore in the 7th round too. We already talked about Rashad Bateman, who was my guy for the 7th round, because I think that it's just kind of crazy that he's going there. I've been taking Rashad Bateman like more in the early like wide receiver 20s, and he goes as wide receiver 33. So kind of a cheat code for me to get him in round 7, in my opinion. But we already talked about him. Somebody else that I like in this range, who you already tore down in your explanation, was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I don't mind in this range. Going off the board as wide running back 26. I kind of like Clyde this year in that range. I mean, I think the problem before was everyone was drafting him so early. I mean, his rookie season, he came in, he's the number 1 running back, number 1 rookie running back somehow, because he went to Kansas City. And then, last year, still everyone kind of telling themselves the story that he will bounce back. There have been things, though. He had the gallbladder issue last year. He was hurt last year. If you actually look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire's per game stats, like what he's actually doing when he's on the field, he's not as bad as he gets credit for, doesn't get credit for, I guess, however you want to say that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is better than the perception of him, I think, in terms of fantasy production. So I don't love him, but coming off the board as wide receiver 26 in this range, I mean, I prefer Clyde to Tony Pollard, to Miles Sanders, some of the other running backs here, to Damian Harris. What'd you say?
RB 26, not wide receiver 26.
Sorry, RB 26. Thought you were taking a little subtle dig there with that whisper. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at what Kansas City's done this offseason, and Sam will tell you he doesn't like Isaiah Pacheco. He also probably doesn't like Jerick McKinnon, and he doesn't like Clyde Edwards.
I actually do like Jerick McKinnon.
Okay,
I actually do like Jerick McKinnon.
Okay, so there we go. So I was going to say, Sam's counterpoint is probably going to be that he hates Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but he also doesn't like anybody else in that backfield. So,
hey, I like Ronald Jones.
Good
until
for
he gets
you.
cut next week.
Good for you. So just to get ahead of it. But yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is somebody that I don't mind in that range. Rashad Bateman, who I already mentioned. Hunter Renfrow, too. Sam mentioned Elijah Moore. I think he's definitely a smash in the 7th round. But Hunter Renfrow is also interesting. I mean, I don't think he's going to return anything close to, what was he last year? Like wide receiver 12 points per game or something. He was like a borderline wide receiver 1. I don't think Hunter Renfrow is going to get anywhere close to that. But wide receiver 34 seems like a decent range. Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, I expect them to be the main targets. But, I mean, you got to see this video of anybody listening or whatever. Look it up. Derwin James on the I Am an Athlete podcast talking about Hunter Renfrow was nuts. I mean, he was like, they kept asking him, too. They were like, really, Hunter Renfrow? And he's like, yeah, Hunter Renfrow is is really good. So Hunter Renfrow is a good guy in that range. So those are some of my favorite targets. Renfrow, Bateman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Devontae Smith, if he kind of breaks into that, but he's kind of more of a round 8 guy, I guess, based on the ADP.
I actually was going to go with Devontae Smith in round 7 as well. He's literally right there on the Football Guys ADP. He's at 84, so that's literally 7-12. Look, he's ranked wide receiver 37. I think he should be ranked, 8 or 9 spots above that. It's not. It really depends what side of the Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith side you lean on. We all know AJ Brown's good as targets, but who is the kind of second guy in that Eagles offense? And again, we're gonna fulfill Craig's prediction, of us talking about multiple Eagles before the show is over. But I think it's warranted. Devontae Smith is a really safe option. I think if you're looking for safety, he's one of the safest guys that you can take in this range. Look, I think he's a better bet than Allen Lazard is in this range, given about, what we really don't know about that Packers offense. I think he's a safer bet than Drake London, who's also in this range. I think he's a safer bet than Brandon Aiyuk, Christian Kirk. I think he's a safer bet than any of the guys in this round 7-8 range. So I take Devontae Smith. We're going into the 8th round. I talked about all those guys. I think this is a good time to, if you're still on the Hero RB strat with me, I think this is a great time to take your second running back. We talked earlier about there being a little bit of a value pocket at the, in the 8th, 9th round, kind of that second dead zone, if you will. Devin Singletary is here, who one of my very good friends in the industry, Herms, refers to as the most underrated running back in football. Chase Edmonds is
You're
here.
spilling into the 8th round, man. Those are my targets.
Hold on. You don't have to say it. I didn't say anything. Rashad Penny is here. Cordell Patterson is here. I think these are all great targets in this kind of area here. Not even thinking about, Damian Harris. If you're kind of concerned about that logjam in New England, I think it's personally best to stay away. But this is a great place to grab your second running back is the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah. And, I agree with you. Spilled into the round 8 guys a little bit too, because those are where I think there are some good running backs. Like you mentioned, I mean, Chase Edmonds was my guy that I was going to say is my target in round 8. Fortunately, I came with backups. So I have Chase Edmonds, who I really like this year. And I talked about him last show. So, I mean, if anybody's listening and you want to hear more about Chase Edmonds, I mean, I used him as my breakout running back. Going off the board as running back 31. Seems kind of crazy to me too. I mean, I like him over I want to say there's 6 running backs that are going ahead of him that I would take Chase Edmonds over. I would take Chase Edmonds over Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard. I would take Chase Edmonds over all those guys, and those are the 5 running backs that are ranked ahead of him. So he's one of the targets there in round 8. Another one for me is Brandon Aiyuk, who going off the board is wide receiver 40. I kind of thought his ADP was going to continue to rise because it did rise a decent amount from a couple months ago with, the s'mores narrative, which, I think I was on the ground floor for the s'mores narrative. I was right there when it hit. Trey Lance and Brandon Aiyuk making s'mores together a couple months ago was an early sign, an early data point that we should have all taken into account. And he's out of the doghouse this year, which he's even made jokes about. It's Danny Gray's doghouse now. Yeah, it's yeah, that's true. Kyle Shanahan can turn that around at any second, but I agree with the takes that I've heard a lot of people mention this, that Brandon Aiyuk might just be a better fit for Trey Lance. I don't know that he's going to outproduce Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel is an uber talented guy, and I'm sure they're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands. But Aiyuk might be a better fit, and so not necessarily that he outscores Deebo, but the gap might be a little bit closer than it was last year. Deebo was a top 5 guy last year, top 8 receiver last year, and Aiyuk struggled for the first half of the season, and he was a little bit in the doghouse, like we mentioned. If you look at his games at the end of the season, though, Aiyuk was, playing close to 100% of the snaps. I mean, the guy was on the field all the time. Good fantasy production. He's also a guy that can do some of those Deebo Samuel things. Brandon Aiyuk can go take reverses. He can take jet sweeps. We saw it against the Eagles a couple of years ago. He took a jet sweep to the house and hurdled 2 guys in the end zone. So Brandon Aiyuk, super talented player, going at wide receiver 40. In an offense that I expect to kind of boom this year. Another player that I would say in the 8th round is Rhamondre Stevenson. I like Rhamondre Stevenson a lot. He's kind of one of the guys that is after Rhamondre Stevenson, I really struggle. So it's after him, it's, Kenneth Walker, Melvin Gordon, James Cook. I like Dameon Pierce, but still, there's some guys a little further down where I'd rather just have Rhamondre Stevenson. And if you have Rhamondre Stevenson as your running back 2 or running back 3, I don't think it's a bad situation to be in. There were some reports coming out today that, it looks like it is going to be more of just Damian Harris and Rhamondre Stevenson, and they both could be on the field for some passing downs. And Damian Harris, he doesn't get any passing work, but he can catch the ball. It's one of those funny narratives where it's Kenneth Walker didn't catch the ball, so people act like he can't. He can, he's just not on the field when it happens. So, is that really a thing? You're going to roll your eyes at that?
No, I'm not.
I can see you. But Rhamondre Stevenson, great option, running back 35. I expect the Patriots to still be a pretty run-heavy offense. They haven't done a ton to bulk up their passing game. So if it is running through Rhamondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, and Rhamondre is getting more of the passing work, which I think we could all assume would happen in that sort of scenario, I think he's a great option. And I'll even slide in a little nugget here, more of a dynasty nugget, I guess, but it could happen during the season. Damian Harris is in the last year of his contract, and the Patriots, I don't think are going to pay him. I would just assume they're not, just based on kind of the way they operate. So if Damian Harris gets moved during the season, or even if he gets hurt, anything happens, Rhamondre Stevenson's upside is immense if he's the lead back in a New England offense. So I like him there as well. And like I said, Brandon Aiyuk is one of the ones there too.
I'm trying to figure out where the Patriots eventually, finish in this like Damian Harris, Rhamondre Stevenson narrative? Like, do they actually plan to like swap them out here? Damian, you get this set of downs, Rhamondre, you get this set of downs, and back and forth and back and forth. I mean, I still tend to feel like it's Damian Harris in this backfield, which is why I'm kind of still, as Rhamondre has kind of shot up boards the past couple of weeks, I've kind of been avoiding it at all costs. Like I was fine taking him at cost before, but the thing with Harris, and this is coming from our good friend Dave Kluge, we have a 7-game sample size from where Damian Harris and Rhamondre Stevenson, I can't speak, were both fully healthy and playing on the field. Stevenson had 49 carries for 262 yards and a touchdown. Damian Harris had 109 carries for 442 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, at this point, Damian Harris is going as the RB29 and Rhamondre is going as the RB35. And that is, as of a few days ago. I just think that we're getting a little too cute with it.
Yeah. Let me give a little bit of a background to that, I guess. I mean, last year, frustratingly, that is what happened though, is Damian Harris missed a game. Rhamondre Stevenson came in and like absolutely exploded. I'm trying to find I'm not going to be able to find the actual game. It was against the Browns, if I remember off the top of my head. But he had like 27 fantasy points or something. I mean, Rhamondre Stevenson was just a monster. Those are the type of things that where is it? 27 fantasy points. Nice. Let's get off the top of my head against Cleveland in week 10. So, yeah, Damian Harris missed time. Rhamondre Stevenson absolutely exploded that game. They gave him 20 carries. He got 100 yards. He had a couple catches in that one as well. I get the Damian Harris thing too. I like Damian Harris at his price too. So I'm not like out on Damian Harris. But if they're going to split time and one of them is going to catch passes, I'd rather have the one that's going to catch passes than the guy that's not. They're both going to be touchdown dependent. If you remember Damian Harris too, to kind of give context to Dave's tweet or whatever it was, is Damian Harris didn't even play for the Patriots for the first couple of years. I mean, they have other running backs. They kind of do that with their guys. Rhamondre Stevenson came in, was clearly behind Damian Harris, and he might still be. But again, if he's going to catch passes, I'd rather have the guy in the split backfield that's going to catch passes than the one that's not. So it's tough. They're going like back to back, and every time that I see it in best ball drafts, especially, I struggle with it too. I think you can kind of benefit from either one though. So I'd rather have the guy that's catching passes at the same time. If you get Damian Harris, I mean, I'm not hating on that for taking him over Rhamondre Stevenson. I think that it's going to be an offense where they're going to use both of them if they're healthy.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I think it's just going to be a very weird split for fantasy, but we will definitely see on that. Moving on to round 9, we are now in that other range of guys. I don't know why I said other range, but once we hit that kind of like 96, the second tier of quarterbacks, Trey Lance is in this tier, Matthew Stafford's in this tier, Aaron Rodgers in this tier. Both of those are good guys. I think it's, you start to look at some tight ends here, some later tight ends. Zach Ertz is in this range. I think that's a great pick if you got all the way down here without a tight end. Dawson Knox as well. I think a good thing to do is kind of look at some of the rookies that are in this range. Chris Olave is here. Treylon Burks is here, as guys that can really ball out in their first years. Chris Olave in particular steps into a great situation in New Orleans. Jameis loves to throw the deep ball. Chris Olave is very good at catching the deep ball. We all know that Michael Thomas, when healthy, is going to patrol the middle of the field, take the slant routes, take the intermediate routes, play that X, role to perfection, moving the chains. But Chris Olave is there for when Jameis decides to air the ball out. And he's got a really good catch radius, even though he's only 6 feet tall. And he's a really good fit for this offense. So Chris Olave here is kind of again, a little bit of a misprice based on the fact that he's a rookie. But New Orleans tends to be one of those teams that does draft rookies really well. I have Chris Olave at wide receiver 31 in my rankings. He's off at Football Guys as wide receiver 41 or 45 right now. And again, like I said, Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz are both great targets as your tight end one in this range.
So I go a different route. This is where I guess kind of we start to differ in our strategy, because I do tend to either want one of the elite tight ends, or I would rather just wait a little bit for some of these later guys and just try and throw a couple darts on like the Cole Kmets and Irv Smiths and some of those guys later on if I don't get one of the top guys. In this range for me, I mean, it's Trey Lance, Kadarius Toney are like my two guys that jump off the board for me. I would take Trey Lance ahead of Joe Burrow this year. So it's kind of like Trey Lance going in like the 9th round versus Joe Burrow going in like the 6th. Like that's kind of just like a reason why when we were in the 6th round talking about those guys, I mean, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray makes sense to me there. Joe Burrow just doesn't make sense to me going that early. He just doesn't have the upside to really like hit in that same way. So Trey Lance going off the board at QB 11 feels like a steal to me if he's able to, stay on the field and do what we expect him to do, at least from the safety point of him just like having the ability to run, having the weapons that he has, and Debo, Aiyuk, Kittle, that rushing game. So Trey Lance, one of my favorite guys here, and then Kadarius Toney, because I mean, look at the guys surrounding him. You mentioned Olave, because Olave has the opportunity as well, but how many guys in like the 9th, 10th round are just like the number one options in their offense or have a chance to just like lead their team in targets? Some in some bad offenses for sure. I mean, but Chris Olave, he has an opportunity too. Kadarius Toney, I would say almost should. If he's healthy, he should be the number one target in the offense. So those are some of the guys that I like there. Kadarius Toney, Trey Lance are two of my favorites. James Cook too. I mean, I like James Cook if you're still looking for some running backs there going off the board as RB38.
I want to, attack this question before we move on to the last round of round 10. Is it too much to invest in stacking Josh Allen, Diggs, and Dawson Knox? I think there are some opportunity cost pieces that you could do a little bit better there. I think, in a regular redraft league, I don't think you have to triple stack a team like this. I think that kind of takes away from some of your weekly upside. There's a good chance, with this kind of build, Dawson Knox is your tight end one. You don't want to have that conflict with your wide receiver one as well. So to this question in a vacuum, yes, I think, but I think if you're okay with the opportunity cost of taking Josh Allen in the 3rd or 4th round and you can build around him and you have the running backs, you have the wherewithal to draft running backs at the, correct spots around him. I think it's a fine strategy. I just want to go the extra and take Knox as well.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. I mean, I love doing this stack in best ball drafts. I mean, it's awesome when you can get Dawson Knox to complete the 3rd guy in the Bills stack. But I would almost say too, which we talked about earlier with where the quarterbacks go. I mean, if you take Stephon Diggs round 1, and I mean, I'm not really taking a quarterback before round 5, so not likely that Josh Allen gets there. But if Josh Allen gets there, I mean, I think that's a great stack. I just wouldn't force it. Like if you're in round 3 and you're trying to force having a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack, I mean, it's cool and it would definitely be beneficial in some weeks where they have big weeks. But I just don't prefer taking Josh Allen where he goes. Based on the ADP. So I think it'd be too much to stack all 3 because to my point, I mean, if I don't take one of those elite tight ends, I'd rather just wait on some guys later on. So forcing the 3rd stack in the Bills seems a little bit too much, but a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack should be money all season long. So I like that.
Yeah, it's extremely safe there. But let's get to our last round here. We got round 10, and I'll start this off. I do want to note that I also love Kadarius Toney. It's not often that you see a guy who has potential top 12 upside in the 9th round. I, definitely suggest taking it if you have the chance. Moving on to the last round, I think my target here is going to be pretty clear. I'm going for one of Dameon Pierce or Sky Moore in this range. It's pretty easy to me. This is the kind of, like I said a couple of rounds ago, this is the kind of range that you want to go invest in those rookies to kind of start to make moves. And at this point, if you're drafting someone in this range, you're not really drafting them to make, an immediate impact on your team. At this point, if you're doing the Hero RB build, Sky Moore should be your wide receiver 6 or 7. Depending on how deep you built your wide receivers, you don't really need him to make an impact right away. Dameon Pierce could be the lead back right out of preseason, or he could take a little bit longer to kind of get into it. Either way, I see him having a massive role by the season's end. And even if he is Michael Carter next year, I'm not too worried. But again, I'm going pretty rookie heavy. Other guys in this range, Nyheim Hines sticks out to me. Russell Gage for, a high floor option. is there, and someone like Tyler Boyd is someone I wouldn't mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate this round 10 range in terms of the ADP because weirdly enough, I like some of the guys that are going deeper just significantly more than some of the guys that are ranked higher in consensus and ADP. So sometimes I find myself just trying to fill different positions here and waiting on some guys that I feel like are going to go later, like the Kenneth Gainwells of the world, maybe even a Michael Carter. So, but to Dameon Pierce, he was also somebody that I was going to say, you snuck in right there. We're like, I'll do this one first. I'll do round 10 because I knew you were going to take Dameon Pierce as well. So he's a guy that I like here. I mean, like Sam said, if you're doing a 0 RB strategy, I mean, he's a great guy to have for the upside. He's a great guy kind of if you have running backs and you're stashing him, hold on to him for a little bit if he doesn't get going right away. I mean, Dameon Pierce seems like a great target, and what they did this past week was pretty telling, I think, saying that they're trying to see some other guys who's going to be Dameon Pierce's backup pretty much was pretty telling. And one of the big things that, Sam's talked about a lot because he's a big Dameon Pierce guy is one of the main problems with rookies getting on the field, why we get so frustrated, is they can't pass protect. They can't stay on the field for third down. Dameon Pierce can kind of do everything. So there's not really that downside to him. You already hear Marlon Mack saying great things about him as well. Rex Burkhead will be more of a utility guy. So I think it's true. I mean, we're not expecting him to lead the backfield by any means. So if anybody has the best chance, I think it's Dameon Pierce as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we wanted to go through 10 rounds of players for our ideal draft. I'll be putting the results that we had into the YouTube description as well, so you can kind of check out how we kind of fared on both sides, what our ideal draft would be, with the bench spots as well. Obviously, everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to have their own ways. I think this is, our unique kind of way of dealing with it. We both kind of built hero RB styles. Jay went a little bit different than me. I like that. I think, everyone should be open to looking at things differently. And I was really glad that we got the chance to do this.
Yeah, it's a good show. We actually, tried to get it into the 1 hour. We did a good job of it. I'm looking at the clock right now. We're right there. So, I mean, 10 rounds in that amount of time, I feel like we did get to talk about a lot of the players as well. So we're going to, Sam said I'll put it in the description. I'm probably going to, tweet out my team or whatever, the guys, my targets in those rounds, because I was excited to do it earlier today. And then I was like, we're going to do it on the podcast. So I shouldn't tweet it out yet. So I probably will later just because it's a fun thing to do.
Absolutely. But guys, thank you again for tuning in to this week's episode of High Floor Football. We will be back next week. Again, we're doing a show every week up until the season starts. And then I have a exciting announcement for us to share on next week's show about our in-season plans. So keep an ear out for that. We will see you guys on the flip side next week. Have a great